Hello and welcome to week 11 of my wildlife year. Been quite a big week for me. Started off on Monday with me leading an online small mammal workshop, which just a few people attended, but I felt it really went well, and it's the first one that I'd organised myself. So yeah, I think I'll be doing more of them again. And then middle of the week, Wednesday, was my 50th birthday, which was, really nice. Very quiet affair with just my wife and my daughter, because my son's up at university. But got a couple of nice books. I got Wild Guides, Britain's Habitats book. Really been after this book for a while. Not just because I'll find it of interest, but I'll actually use it in work as well if I'm writing any reports. So really looking forward to that. Wild Guides I've already covered, I think once. I've mentioned the mammal, the Britain's Mammals field guide. I've got quite a few of them now. I've already got the British Birds field guide, but this is actually the pocket book of British Birds for the Wild Guides. It's really good, a lot more compact, not as much detail in there, but it's a nice small book that just fits in your pocket. So I've had a couple of sort of like really old pocket books and birds. They're starting to fall apart now, so it's really nice to have this one that I can just put in. And finally, I also got, it's been on my wish list for a while, I've already got a Dragonfly and Damselfly book from the Wild Guides, but this is the other one that I've wanted, so that I've got the two books, the two main Dragonfly books that are really excellent. This is a Bloomsbury Wildlife Guides Field Guide to Dragonfly and Damselflies of Great Britain and Ireland. Really lovely book. I'm looking forward to using it this year. So that was actually quite good. But the other thing that happened on my birthday, although I never found out about it till the following day, was that a grant application that I put into Denham Community Council for £250 to help fund my wildlife project that I want to put set up to get people looking at the wildlife in their garden was successful, and that was £250, which I tweeted about on Thursday, and that was to complement my crowdfunder. Now I'd set the target of 500 for the crowdfunder. Up until Thursday it had £105 on it, so I thought, right, well, I'll put on Twitter that I've got £105 so far, I've got £250 grant, maybe one or two more people will give, and I'll be able to sort of afford to run the project. And any shortfall, if as long as it wasn't too much, I might be able to afford to do it myself and be able to buy the 50 mammal track tunnels and the two trail cams. Well, I put it online on Twitter, and I tagged a few people, including Chris Packham, and he retweeted it. And from that moment on, a couple of people that I knew crowdfunded, donated to crowdfunder, but a lot of people that I didn't put money in, and I was absolutely amazed that on Friday, 24 hours later, when the crowdfunder closed, it had 400 out of the £500 target. That on top of the 250 that I've already got from the grant, and a couple of cheques from my family that my family are sending me, I've got more than enough, not just to buy that equipment, but to expand my wildlife project even further. So I'm going to be able to get more stuff. So I'm really looking forward to how this year's going to go. I was actually quite overwhelmed with the generosity of people, especially I knew that I was asking people to give money to a project that if they're outside this area they're not going to benefit from, and it's a really tough time, I know, for a lot of people financially. So I'm really moved and overwhelmed by the generosity of those people. So I just want to say thank you to all those that put money in for support, and also all those that have sent messages of support for my project. And before I get too emotional, let's go on with my wildlife year, week 11. Well, I've just finished my small mammal workshop, online small mammal workshop on Zoom. A few participants. I think it went quite well. I really hope it did. One of the things that I was saying to them was about publications. One of the ones I don't think I've mentioned before on My Wildlife Year is these Shire natural history publications. You can pick them up on eBay really quite cheaply, sort of like, you know, £2.53, like including postage and packing. They're from the 1980s. That wide range of subjects. They're really good. These ones here are shrews, the mole, and the hedgehog. But they're, you know, they're really good. They're sort of like a bit scientific, but not too heavy. So really worthwhile looking out. Bit dated, as I say, but they've, you know, in the main, they've went, you know, they've weathered the years quite well. The bat one, for instance, is sort of like, you know, some of the species they talk about are a bit out of dates because it only talks about common pipistrelle rather than soprano. But, you know, there's some really good interesting reads, interesting facts in there. So have a look and see what you think of them. Had the moth trap out last night. It was actually quite a cold one, a lot colder than it was supposed to be because there is actually a bit of a frost in the grass. But I know again I've got something because there's something outside of the trap. So you can see it's just sitting there quite nicely. I'm just unscrewing the lid to the tub and I'll pop it in it. As I said, I've had the moth trap out overnight, a bit frosty. I know I've already got one on the outside of it. Let's go and see what's inside it. And nothing in there. Check under the rim. So just the one that was on the outside. So let's go and see if I can identify what that is. Right. Now, the moth's a bit of a active one, so I'm popping it in my little fridge just to cool it down for a little while. I've had the moth in the fridge for a wee while. Doesn't have to be long, just long enough for it to calm it down and stop it wandering off and flying off, and let me get a decent photo of it so that I can ID it. So here we go. So looking at markings in this moth, I'm fairly certain it's a new one for me, but it's a satellite, as you can see in the book here. Here's the satellite, and there's the moth. So, satellite and moth. As you can see here, the satellite, it says it's unmistakable. The diagnostic is the small satellite marks around, it's little satellite dots around the kidney mark, so which you could clearly see in the photo here. And its flight season is one generation from late September, October to late April. Well, we're only in March, so that makes it light. It regularly comes to light, and it feeds on ivy flowers and berries. Well, I've got lots of ivy in the garden. So over the winters as an adult, becoming active in mild weather. Well, it's actually, although it was a wee bit frosty overnight, it was also quite mild to start with in the evening. It was just later on in the night it got quite chilly. So I'm quite pleased with that. Only one moth in the trap overnight, or on the trap overnight, but it's a new one for me. Well, there was something in the Longworth this morning. Definitely something in there, as Dexter told me in no uncertain terms, that there was definitely something in there. He stood there just paw up, looking at it very seriously. So, just got to tip it out. I suspect, obviously, the small mammal population has found out that I'm leading a small mammal workshop this evening, and they're trying to get in the act. Well, we've got an adult male, so he'll be popped in a box, a little tub, and taken for release well out from here. Right, got the rooks above me in the rookery. You can just see it actually just There's one in the nest just there behind me. Got the mouse, got to release it. There it is, way in there. I put my moth trap out earlier, but it's heavy rain due, so I'm just going to get it in. I'm not leaving it out overnight. I don't want it to get, although it can take light rain, I don't want it to get flooded. Right, so the moth trap's been on for, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours, and oh, we've got a moth on the outside there. I think that's a marsh moth that I caught the other day. I know this is not necessarily the same one, but same species. But I'll just pop it in a tub and see. Second moth in the trap, and I think it's a chestnut moth. My memory serves me right. I thought in the poor light last night that this was actually a chestnut, but it's not. It's a common Quaker. So here it is, just there. Well, there's 4 different variations there, sort of like all in between. I'd say this one's closest to the one second from the left. What do you think? Looks like it to me. So this is a common Quaker. It's quite common over most of the UK, and it's got one flight, one generation, March to May. That's why it looks quite fresh, because it's probably just not long hatched out from its cocoon. Well, that bat was very close. I think you might have just seen it just fly across in front of the camera there. Right, I've had the moth trap out overnight. It's been one of the warmest nights I think of the year so far, and I can actually already see from here there's at least one moth on the outside of the moth trap, so I'm just going to go and collect it in. There's the moth there. It looks like a March moth. So I think this is my 3rd one. Possibly the same one obviously, but my 3rd one of the season. So just managed to get it in there. There we go. I'm getting quite good at putting them in one-handed. Yeah, that's a March moth. So we'll see if there's nothing around this side. I'll take the light out and then just pop this big tub right in there and stop anything flying out. Well, I've got the moth trap here. Got to empty it now and see what's in it this morning. I'm hoping, because it was a mild night last night, there'll be a few species in there. Right. Well, without even taking something out, there's something down there. So, moths always look, well, not always, can sometimes look dead. That one's upside down, but it's not. It's just in a state of torpor. So, there's one marsh moth the other day. I released it and Lydia was certain it was dead, my daughter, and it started flying away. Nothing else in here. Well, I'm wrong now. I can actually see. I really need to get my eyes tested, but obviously with lockdown and my wife being shielding, I haven't been able to get to the optician. So, but now I can actually see them side by side. You can clearly see that they are not the same at all. So I'm going to go and identify what this one is. This moth, I wasn't sure about I contacted a friend who's a good moth idea, and he told me it was a clouded drab, which it can be quite variable, as there's 5 different ones in here. Flight season March to May, sometimes even a bit earlier. Fairly common and widespread. So lovely little bat. Good grief, I've got bats in the brain. Lovely little moth. Although the nocturnal bat, one of the biggest bats in the UK, is one of the first bats to come out about 30 minutes before sunset, it's probably not the first one you'll be aware of seeing. That honour falls to the pipistrelle species common in soprano. They come out normally about 15 minutes, 20 minutes before sunset, which is actually quite a long time before last light. And they're the ones that will flit about, and they're the ones you're probably more likely to see in gardens. They're by far the most common bat, although the name the common pipistrelle this far north is not actually the truth. The soprano is the most common, but halfway up the UK, it sounds like the common is not the most common, it's the soprano. This far north in Scotland, you're looking about 75% of them are sopranos, 25% are commons. Of course, there is also an enthusiast pipistrelle, but they make up less than 1% of the population, so we're just pretending they don't exist. I cannot believe I've missed it. I've just seen a nocturnal fly over. It's a lot bigger bat than a pipistrelle. It was flying quite high, but it was fairly obviously a nocturnal. I did just catch it on the bat detector. I was up quite a high frequency, but I did hear it, and I just turned it down just in time to see it disappear over a tree. Probably be flying from its roost to its foraging sites, but there is also one pipistrelle out and about, so hopefully it'll be back very shortly. How's that for a sunset? Isn't that beautiful? I really am lucky to live where I do, with a river close by, open countryside, the odd hill round about, and lovely sunsets. I'm hearing a pipistrelle somewhere around here. Where is it? Where is it? Come on, pipistrelle. Where are you? It's through this side. Flying around the trees, or through the trees. Oh, there's 2. We're obviously coming into spring, really, because this area here always gets really busy with insects. I suspect it's something to do with the bottle bank here, and the sort of like any remnants of whether it's fizzy drinks or alcoholic drinks that may be around, attracting insects, which therefore attracts the bats. This is a bit macabre, but I found something quite interesting. Come and look at this. Right. This looks like the site of a sparrowhawk kill. There's some small feathers here. I don't know how you can see in amongst all the moss. Lots of small feathers. And some more feathers over here. And here, the most exciting part of the find is a starling skull. So I'm going to pop it in a tub and let nature do its thing. And at the end of it, I'll have a nice starling skull from my skull collection. This is this thing that really cheers me up, even if it is a bit macabre. You can actually see it's still got some of the spinal column still attached there. So there's birds already nesting in boxes. I've seen the videos online, but it's never too late to make and put up a bird box. Even if it's not used this year, it will be used next year, and it might actually be used this year for roosting in potentially you might get something nesting in it, you never know. And not just birds, bumblebees, mice, I've found all of these nesting in nest boxes. So first thing I've got to do is mark out my wood and where I'm going to cut. So I've marked out this bit of wood here, and I've got my power saw here. I will move my drill out the way so that it's not covered in sawdust, and obviously you have to be very careful with saws. Right, so I've got all these ready to get put together now. I've got my screwdriver bit and my drill, and we'll get going. These can be a bit awkward to get the first one going, so I'm hoping I'm not going to embarrass myself too much. It would help if I had it set to actually go in rather than out. One thing is the roof has to be slightly longer than the front. Always important to make sure that you don't put the roof there, as I nearly did. Right. Right, so that's the front one. What we need to do is put a hole about here. Now 25 millimetres will let in blue tits, 28 will let in great tits, and about 32 will let in sparrows. So I'm going to go for a slightly bigger hole, just slightly less. I've actually got a 30 mil, so I'm going to put a 30 mil one in there and see what ends up going in, if anything. So I've got my drill bit attached, hold this in place with my feet and I drill away. Right, so that's the hole drilled. Just take off any rough wood in the inside. Next bit is putting the roof on. So, want to give it a hinge and make it as watertight as possible. So cut this to just a bit more, so it actually just a bit more than the 6 inches across, just to give it a bit of more waterproofing. And then and there we go. A nice bird box ready to be up. You can drill a couple of holes in there if you need them for to stop the wood splitting. Sometimes if you hammer a nail through there, the wood can split, so sometimes it's better to just drill a hole, so that's what I'll do. Right, that's the two. I've drilled one hole at the top and one hole at the bottom. I'm going to be attaching to the workshop. You can drill a couple of holes in the top and the bottom and use string to tie it onto a tree or such like. If you've got to nail into a tree, don't use a conventional nail. Steel or an iron nail. If it's left in the tree and someone cuts into it with a chainsaw for whatever reason, the chainsaw could break, and that is seriously sort of like can do some damage. Much better to use aluminium or copper. Now, there is the myth that copper will kill trees, copper nails will kill trees. Potentially if you put enough into it, yes, but if you're just putting 1 or 2 copper nails into a mature tree, it isn't going to kill it, trust me. So use something like copper or aluminium nails, or tie it up. The reason, as I said, that you want to put some holes in here before you nail them up is just sometimes the wood can split and it will split right down the back, which is no good. Pick your bird box up. If it's used over the summer, come the winter, give it, just take out any nest in there. It's always good to have your bird box with a lid that you can actually get into. You just have to make sure that you get in close enough with the staples to hold this in place. I used a staple gun. You can use sort of like metal staples that you can hammer in, sort of like that are a bit bigger, or you can use felt, sort of like roofing felt, sort of like short, stubby things. I can't remember what they're called. I used to know this because I used to work and do this all the time, but your memory plays tricks on you as you get older. So I'm going to put this up. If it's used this year, great. If it's not the end of the world. I've chosen this side of the workshop to put up the bird box because it's north facing, which means it's not going to get much sun. There is much sun as something that's south facing that, which is really good because for birds, because you don't want bird boxes to overheat. So just going to put it up quite as high as I can without ladders, because I cannot get ladders. I cannot get ladders into this soft ground here. There we go. That's it up and in place. Now we'll see if someone uses it. Always enjoy bird making. It takes me back to when I first started as a trainee in the environmental conservation world. In fact, when I became a training supervisor, one of the first things I used to get trainees to do was make a bird box, because it was a great way to assess how they were with tools. Were they able to hammer a nail in straight, cut bits of wood to the right, sort of like right size. In fact, sometimes some of the bird boxes that came out, they were not very good. They were, I wouldn't let anyone. In fact, I don't think any self-respecting blue tit or house sparrow would actually nest in any of those boxes. But tried their best, and by the end of their time with us, they were able to make a bird box. Just an update on my woodlice. As usually, yes, there's one under. In fact, there's two there, three there. Now see. So I think there's a small snail in here somewhere as well. You can see a snail or slug rather. Oh, there's two there, right themselves. So I'll just pop that down gently. I can't remember how many I put in here. I really should have counted. There they are. I'm looking to see if I can find this slug, but snail, but I'm having no luck whatsoever. Right, I'll put the lid back on. Checking them again next week. Right, well, my crowdfunder is going really well this week. I'm going to do a bit on that at the start of the video once it's actually finished. But in the meantime, because I got the grant of £250, I needed to get invoices for the bits that I was ordering. So I've got an invoice for the mammal traps and mammal tunnels. I cannot afford to buy them before I get the grant, so I've got the invoice, and once I get the money I'll be able to buy them. But what I did have enough money for was these, so I'm really excited. So they've arrived in the post today. I'm going to go put them out overnight and see what we get, if we get in, just to check they're working. Right, so I've had the trail cameras out overnight and just going to open them up and switch them off. Hello Mrs. Blackbird. So Blackbird just flown down a few feet away from me. There is quite a tame one in the garden, and she usually turns up when I'm giving the hens their feed, and I have to put some feed out for her, just sprinkle that out for her. this time of year my neighbour's house always gets quite noisy, and that's because there's starlings and sparrows nesting just under the guttering. Quite noisy. It's going to also be a bit noisier later in the year because the swifts come in and evict some of the nesting birds, because they traditionally use some of the gaps as their annual nesting site as well. So it'll be interesting to see when the swifts arrive this year. Whether you can see that starling there, just checking out that hole. I don't know whether he's already nesting in there, she's already nesting in there, or whether they're just looking for a nest site at the minute. There's a couple more up there. Why not? There is a starling in there. It's now poking its head out. So you can see up here, there's a sparrow. I don't know how you saw that just come out of there. All those gaps underneath the gutter in there, used by starlings and sparrows the early part of the year, nesting season, and then the swifts come in and evict them. I've had the moth trap out overnight, as you can see. I've put it, this time, I've put it on a bit of white plastic and a few cartons around here. There wasn't supposed to be much wind. There's obviously been a bit of wind because some of the cartons have blown away from the base of the moth trap, but we'll see, hopefully see what's in there. Here's a good example. I've just picked up this last one here, and look in there, there's a moth. So this is one of the reasons why we put this sheet down the outside. Sometimes moths come to the outside of the trap. They don't make it in the trap, but they'll find somewhere to hide close to the trap. So it was worthwhile, even just for this one moth there, putting it out. Another thing about putting down the white plastic is sometimes, like now, you get a moth underneath. So just try and get it in the tub. Also videoing it, so there it is. Just try to see, it's a Hebrew character, I know that one. So just to check underneath this one here, there's a moth there, you see it? So I'll get, hopefully it'll still stay there, and when I take the trap in, I've just got a little stick that takes it out now. The other thing is, once you lift this up, is to look for moths on the grass that have been made under. See if there is any. There's one there. Can you see it? So it's always worthwhile putting out that sheet of plastic. So I'll get, if it is, I'll lose that there. I think it's another Hebrew character, but I'll pop it in there. Just so that I can remember to make a record of it. If I don't collect it, I might forget it. And, oh, there's another moth there. Off you go. So, I struggle, being colourblind, to sometimes see the moths on the grass. What I do is I leave the stones, just knock them off the plastic just to the edge, so that I know where my plastic was, so that I see another moth moving. So far I've got 5 moths there. Hopefully I'll get the 6th one that's tucked up in there, and that's without even opening the moth trap. Excellent. So this is going to be by far my biggest haul of the year so far, even if the trap's empty, but I know it's not because I've actually seen one flying about. It's still obviously active, flying about in there. I'm just doing my last check here. Nah, didn't see any more. Let's get in the trap inside and empty it. I got it out. It's another Hebrew character. So I'll go over there. So that's 6 moths that I've got, and I haven't even looked in the trap yet. Knowing my luck, we'll probably have even less in the trap than 6. But let's go and see. Right, let's go and see. Now, this one here looks like a micromoth, so that'll be my first micromoth of the season. They're a bit harder to identify, but I have got a book, and I've also got a useful person online that I can ask. So let's pop that in a tub. Now I've actually had a closer look at that. It's not a micromoth. It is some type of caddisfly, and I do have a book to help me identify caddisflies, so I'll have a look at that. So six moths and a caddisfly so far. Right. I don't know whether I've actually said. In fact, I'm really struggling with my eyesight at the minute, because I really need to go to the opticians, but obviously with COVID I'm not wanting to, so I'm going to see if I can get some more light on this. Right. That's a bit better. I forgot to put on my light on my video. I can see slightly better now. There's a moth in there. So, see if I can manage this. There, I've got it in. And try to see what that is. If I can see. Is it another Hebrew character? Yes, it is. Let's like it. Hebrew character seems to be the favourite at the moment. So I think I was right about the number of moths that may be going to get. Oh, there's a little woodlouse there that's made its way in. And is there anything under this last one? No. And we'll check under here. Oh, there's a spider there. Oh, there's a moth. See, this is why I always say it's worthwhile checking under here. Anything else? Let's go back again to that same moth. So I'll get. Oh, I've just noticed there's another moth down there. So it's always worthwhile checking. I'm just checking in this as well. This is a funnel, so that when you put this one here in here, any water, if it rains at all, goes down here. You can see it goes down into that funnel and then it goes out the bottom. But there is a little bit of sort of like wire, sort of wool type stuff in here that catches, stops anything. It's also gunked up with lots of little bits and pieces. There's some grass and that in there. Need to give it a clean out. So let's get these 2 moths out and go and identify them all. obviously hadn't turned the moth trap 360 degrees because there's actually two moths in there, so we'll get them in pots for IDing. Right, well, we've got 11 tubs here, but I know one's a caddisfly, but that's 10 moths, which is the best haul I've had so far this year, so I'm going to try and ID them now. Well, that was quite easy for the first sort of half of them. For half of them is they're all Hebrew characters, so 5 out of 10 are Hebrew characters. I think these 3 here are clouded drabs, but I need to get that checked out. And these 2 here are definitely common Quaker. This one here is a bit more worn than this one. This one's a lot fresher. So I'll make a note of those species, but I'll check out these 3 that have actually got the ID right. So that's 3 species of moths and 1 caddisfly. I haven't tried to ID the caddisfly yet. That might take a wee bit longer to do. I've got out one of the 5 Hebrew characters that I caught in the moth trap. It's such a beautiful moth. It really is. Anyway, 5 of them, 3 clouded drab and 2 common Quaker. I'm going to be a bit later doing my wildlife year video editing today because I'm taking part in the Mammal Society's first regional mammal groups conference, which, as you can hear in the background, is just getting underway, so looking forward to it.
And what I'm going to do is talk about our red list, which was something that grew out of the population review, and particularly to highlight how important the work done by all the volunteers across the country is in making these sorts of things happen. Because frankly, without people on the ground with their welly boots on getting the data, we can't sit in our offices building fancy models and doing cool stuff with data. It's absolutely reliant on the effort of volunteers and all the people who support in terms of verifying and all those sorts of things.
Well, that's another My Wildlife Year video over and done with. Hope you've enjoyed week 11. I think you can see that the weather's improving, therefore there's more wildlife around and I'm able to get out and about a bit more, and I'm hoping that you're enjoying the journey so far and that the things are going to get even more exciting as the year goes on. I look forward to hearing from you if you want. As always, just get in contact with me through social media or in the comments below this video. And as always, feel free to make any suggestions or give me any feedback you want. And I'm also happy to receive direct messages too. Okay, take care and I'll see you for My Wildlife Year, week 12 next week.